board insists on positive working relationships and a level of trust in order for the Oregon University system to operate to its highest potential. Particularly over the last 18 months, with some significant and game-changing reform proposals on the table, it was critical to work as a highly functional team. The board ultimately and unanimously last July concluded it was committed to its working relationship with Dr. Lariviere and entered into a one-year contract extension, with provisions focused on the board's expectations with regard to the relationship. After the execution of the one-year contract last July, I spent hours and hours as board president with Dr. Lariviere conveying the need for teamwork and trust. We talked extensively about bold and innovative proposals to transform public higher education in this state. I told him that in my short tenure on the board, it had become clear to me that the governance structure was convoluted and that he was being pulled in too many directions by too many people. I said the structure needed streamlining, and I have since taken several steps to accomplish just this. More are to follow. In my discussions with Dr. Lariviere, I explained, however, that organizational structures were no substitute for organizational integrity, and that he must take personal ownership in rebuilding trust with this board. Over the past few months, however, it became clear to me in the conversations with board members that trust was not being rebuilt and actually eroding further, because we are contractually obligated to sit down with Dr. Lariviere and all U.S. presidents at least 6 months before the end of employment agreements to discuss future employment. I consulted individually with the Chancellor and board members to get a sense of whether or not the Chancellor would recommend a multi-year contract to the board for approval. When it was apparent to me that the working relationship was damaged, I approached Dr. Lariviere with another board member in confidence to explain the situation and to present multiple options. It is unfortunate that this conversation to discuss personnel options was publicized prematurely. This meeting was scheduled to convey that the relationship appeared to be broken and to present options for going forward. It was not, as has been depicted in the media accounts, to convey a decision. These inaccuracies about such a sensitive matter have done a disservice to everyone involved. In anticipation of the challenges to come and the substantial amount of work to be tackled in the coming weeks and months, it is imperative that the OUS team, including the board, the Chancellor, and OUS presidents, have a fully functional working relationship. With the efforts to capture a renewed working relationship seemingly unsuccessful, we needed a course of action in order to permit the board, OUS, and the University of Oregon to move forward. With that, I and other members of board leadership have consulted extensively with the Chancellor and have asked him, per the board's policy and executive leadership and management, to bring a recommendation regarding Dr. Lariviere's employment agreement to the full board for consideration and possible action. With that landscape and the tremendous media attention paid to this board member, I will now ask the Chancellor for a recommendation regarding the future employment of Dr. Richard Lariviere.
Thank you. As President Donegan mentioned in his introduction, considerable effort has gone into cultivating a positive and effective working relationship with President Lariviere. Last summer, the board entered into a one-year agreement with President Lariviere focused on outlining expectations, rebuilding trust and communication, and aligning our visions for the future of Oregon public higher education. When, as President Donegan stated, the relationship appeared beyond repair, we consulted extensively about the appropriate course of action. These consultations were informed by the obligations owed to Dr. Lariviere in his employment agreement. President Donegan and another director met with President Lariviere last week to discuss with him in confidence the various courses of action that were available to both the board and to President Lariviere at that time. When these meetings, as mentioned, were publicized, Board President Donegan asked me to formulate a recommendation for the board's consideration today. With an eye always on effective and stable leadership for the University of Oregon and continuing the university's progress, we took the opportunity earlier this afternoon to go through the dimensions of my recommendation in the executive session of the board, always cognizant of the obligations owed to Dr. Lariviere. With that, considering all options and the background as described by Board President Donegan, I recommend that the Board turn to the employment agreement itself for a course of action and end the contract prior to its natural expiration. I recommend that the Board follow subsection B of the termination clause of Dr. Lariviere's employment agreement and terminate the contract without cause. With the provision to Dr. Lariviere of the required 30 calendar days written notice, should you agree with my recommendation, the employment agreement will terminate without cause effective December 28, 2011.
Respect other people's ability to listen to this hearing. Out of respect for Dr. Lariviere, this is a personnel matter. Please let everyone attend this meeting and participate fully.
Shame on you.
Shame on you. Shame on you. We are participating.
This participation leads you outside of the meeting. Unfortunately, we cannot convene a meeting when the public is disrupted.
Thank you, Chancellor. I would like to now turn to Dr. Robert Kerr, current president of the U of O Senate, for his perspective.
And speak into the microphone because it only picks up if you go directly to it.
Just for the record, my name is Robert Keir. It's a public record, just to let you know. And for the media. First, I would like to thank the board for inviting me to give testimony at the meeting during which you will consider terminating the contract of Richard Lariviere, the 16th president of the University of Oregon. We are all aware that today's meeting is a challenging one for all concerned, and I am grateful for the opportunity to serve as an invited witness. I am here today to give testimony on behalf of the University of Oregon Senate, which is composed of faculty, students, officers of administration, officers of research, and classified staff. It is the only university legislative body of its kind in the country, since it includes not only faculty, but all of the stakeholder groups within our community. As such, it exemplifies the principle of shared governance that is a primary aspect of our identity and that dates back to the University of Oregon's Charter of 1872 and remains embedded in state legislation today. Over the past 2.5 years, I have been fortunate to get to know Richard Lariviere through my work in the University Senate. As part of our shared governance system, I personally meet with the president on a monthly basis, and I sit on the Faculty Advisory Council, which meets with him and our senior administrators every week for 2 hours to discuss vital university issues. I'll depart from my statement to say that these meetings are held in confidence. So any matters that would be pertaining to some of what we're discussing today, when we discuss these, it's in absolute confidence with the president. The University of Oregon has a long-standing tradition of consultation and shared decision-making between our president and the 5 stakeholder groups that I represent. On Friday, November 25th, the faculty members of the University of Oregon Senate Executive Committee issued the following statement in order to convey our strong and unwavering support for the renewal of President Lariviere's contract. I quote, "President Lariviere has vocally and publicly aligned his vision for the UO with Governor Kitzhaber's efforts to develop creative, innovative solutions to the problems besetting our entire education system. Under President Lariviere's bold and dedicated leadership, the UO has begun to close the previously widening gap that separated it from nearly all of its national peers. In student enrollments, faculty research grants, diversity, the quality of the freshman class, and private giving, the UO has improved, while many of the country's leading public research universities have suffered setbacks. This is compelling evidence of President Lariviere's tangible record of success during a brief tenure of only 2.5 years, a remarkable achievement in light of ongoing state disinvestment in higher education. The spontaneous and widespread outcry of support for President Lariviere, including more than 6,000 signatures on a Senate petition as of today, and I submit this petition to the board, 6,000, actually more than 6,300 signatures, demonstrates that he inspires deep and passionate commitment among those who carry out and support UO's teaching and research missions. His departure will shatter morale at the UO, cause many of its employees to leave the state for positions elsewhere, and make it difficult to recruit new academic talent. This will compromise the university's ability to serve Oregon's citizens and to stimulate its economy now and in the future. The damage will be both short and long term. The deterioration and destabilization of the UO will lead some of Oregon's most promising and deserving high school graduates to seek their education in other states, where the cost of tuition will be much higher. The inability to attract and educate our best and brightest here at home will cause a brain drain with exceptionally negative consequences for all of Oregon. The state board's plan to remove President Lariviere without first consulting the university community demonstrates a profound lack of understanding about UO's educational mission. It reveals an appalling disregard for the intelligence and expertise of our dedicated and hard-working faculty, students, and staff, all of whom I represent. The process by which it has occurred will harm the recruitment of leaders in all public universities in Oregon, marking the state system as one in which pursuing excellence is a risk to one's career. Due to the efforts of our current president, the UO has been put on an upward academic and fiscal trajectory. This momentum will be lost, and it will be extremely difficult to regain without him. In the strongest possible terms, we urge the State Board to halt its efforts to remove Richard Lariviere as the president of the University of Oregon. Furthermore, we implore the governor and the legislature to help ensure his retention, not merely for the benefit of the University of Oregon, but for the present and future well-being of all Oregonians. In addition to a copy of this statement, which has been co-signed by every dean and department head at the university, I am also submitting additional materials as follows. First, a volume of media coverage from November 22nd through November 27th. Second, a volume of letters of support. And finally, the Senate petition, which I gave you previously, which has been signed by more than now 6,300 individuals. Offer these materials to you in support of my statement. Thank you. In addition to a copy on Sunday, November 27th, 2 days after our letter was sent to the State Board, we were heartened to read a strong endorsement of President Lariviere by 19 state legislators, including those from our own region and beyond. In their powerful and compelling statement, they assert, I quote, President Lariviere is a world-class university president with exceptional leadership capabilities. We believe that your pending action sends the wrong message to the public, to the academic community, to policymakers, and to other university presidents, both current and future. Whether intended or not, the result of this action is a message that the charge of university leaders is not to lead a university to the best of their ability. This is the exact opposite of what our state needs right now. In the wake of the Great Recession, the challenges of managing our public institutions demand bold, innovative leadership. We believe President Lariviere's strong advocacy on behalf of Oregon students and on behalf of the University of Oregon is exactly the type of leadership that is needed during these times. In the last few years, the UO has greatly increased enrollments, both from Oregon and outside, while also increasing the proportion of student retention. Both research grants and private gifts to the university have grown, as has the university's global reputation, as witnessed by parents from outside Oregon and the United States willing to pay a high price for their children to gain a UO education. Comments from UO faculty and alumni strongly suggest this is due to President Lariviere's strong and visible leadership. This is the type of innovation and leadership that Oregon institutions desperately need if we are to prosper and prepare our young for a bright future. We have heard that this is a personnel matter, not about policy. We disagree. As it appears that this is a disagreement about policy choices and how President Lariviere acted to protect and move the University of Oregon forward in both academic excellence and long-term fiscal soundness. We believe that retaining Richard Lariviere as the University of Oregon president is in the university's and the state's long-term best interest in order to allow the university to continue its drive to deliver world-class education, research, and innovation for the state of Oregon. We respectfully ask for the board to reconsider your pending decision and retain Richard Lariviere. On behalf of the University Senate, I would like to publicly thank the 19 legislators who co-signed this statement in support of our president and for their support for our commitment, and I quote, to deliver world-class education, research, and innovation for the state of Oregon. We commend them for their leadership in issuing this important statement about the future of education in Oregon. It is clear that the events of the past week have shaken us to the core, all of us, everyone in this room, in large part because the process of decision-making regarding contract renewal has taken place with virtually no consultation and with little understanding of our system of shared governance. We have been forced to ask, and I say forced to ask, how can it be that an employer considers the renewal of a contract without adequately consulting those whose lives will be most directly affected by their decision? Many of you are business people, and I ask you, consider this question. Every well-managed organization, including universities, considers the views of its most important stakeholders. This is especially true at the University of Oregon. How can it be that the State Board of Higher Education has shown so little understanding of a university that it oversees? Its mission, its values, its people, and its needs. I ask every one of you, please do not misconstrue my remarks. We understand that you have a difficult decision to make here today, and this vote will become an indelible part of Oregon's history. However, there is much more at stake than the employment status of President Lariviere, which he is the first to point out. Last night, in a statement sent to our faculty, staff, students, and alumni, President Lariviere made the strongest possible case for how we must move forward. He wrote, "I came here because the University of Oregon is a model for how public universities fulfill their mission in troubling times. I came here because the state of Oregon is a place so often at the forefront of change, a crucible where innovators, dreamers, mavericks, and fair-minded citizens devise new solutions to old problems. I still believe this is true. The conflicts that resulted in my termination are a symptom of the broken system of governance and funding in Oregon higher education that desperately needs changing if the state of Oregon is going to achieve the greatness we all aspire to. Your cause must be how Oregonians will be educated." I will repeat that. Your cause must be how Oregonians will be educated. Your cause must be how institutions like the University of Oregon can be strong in a state with weak public resources. As members of the University of Oregon community, our cause is and always will be how Oregonians are educated. We are educators, administrators, and staff, all of whom have dedicated our lives I'm repeating, dedicated our lives and careers to the University of Oregon, and proudly so, and to its mission of educating our students for the future of this state. Regarding meaningful policy reform, we draw your attention to the fact that the governor and legislature have taken actions this year to put forward a new governance structure for education in Oregon at all levels. Now it is time for the next step, which is to create a powerful institutional governing board for the University of Oregon and for each of the institutions within our system, according to the particular mission and needs of each university. In the 21st century, one size does not fit all, and education in Oregon can only thrive if we support the unique abilities of each institution to educate its specific population according to its deepest values and needs. Through consultation and collaboration, which are fundamental to the identity of the University of Oregon, we are committed to working with you, every one of you, to achieve these goals that are now within our reach. In the spirit of shared governance, we look to you for guidance, for wisdom, and for leadership. We want to work together with you to create the brightest future for our students, for our university, and for the people of Oregon. In closing, we implore you to vote for the renewal of President Richard Lariviere, who we trust with absolute confidence. He is the leader who will inspire and enable us to achieve our greatest potential as we strive to best serve the educational needs of our students and the state of Oregon. I signed, sincerely, Robert Keir, President, University of Oregon Senate, Philip H. Knight, Professor of Music. Thank you. That's quite all right.
I apologize. And I want to thank you for your very eloquent and thoughtful comments, and I'll try to speak up. I want to ask, or I want to offer the other directors the opportunity to respond to your comments, and I'll kick off.
Please.
The first is just with regard to your comments, which I've read as well, with regard to process, and I want to convey that I understand the frustration around the lack of consultation, and if I was in your shoes, I'd probably feel the same way. What I do want to convey is the processes that have been followed. Have been done so with the best intentions and within legal requirements around a confidential personnel matter. In no way would I want you to interpret them as being disrespectful to you and your peers in any way. And so I will ask for you to understand that this was a confidential personnel matter that required processes, not only that, just communications that are severely limited. And so that's the first comment back. The second comment back would be, even if we had the opportunity for extensive consultations, which I'm sure would have been informative, I would just ask you to also consider that the very heartfelt loyalty that I heard through all your comments would have weighed very heavily among many considerations in any sort of a personnel matter. And I would ask you to consider that board relationships, relationships within the system would also have weighed. And so despite the fact that I can personally say I find all your comments extremely compelling, I do, that even if the process had been as you have described, a personnel matter would have considered other aspects that I personally think are important. And so I just wanted to leave you with that on the process. The second comment that I would make is with regard to policy. And I read your comments, and I've heard your comments now about the disagreements that you do feel that the policy, that there are substantial policy differences. And I just want to say, I don't hear any. I mean, I heard that statement, and then I listened intently for where are they? Where are the policy differences? I've enjoyed very, very strong personal rapport with Dr. Lariviere, in part because I appreciate the policy arguments. And so I will say again, and I'm sure you've heard me say before, that I respectfully disagree about substantial policy differences that I hear. And I'm not making that statement to say everybody gets everything they want. But I'm telling you, at least what I've heard, I have not seen any deal-killer policy disagreements. And I'll certainly give you the opportunity to respond before I ask for any other directors to weigh in.
Well, I thank you very much for your comments. And as you can see from our statement, we're committed to consultation and collaboration. That's fundamental to who we are. But I'd have to ask you all first. And I don't want an answer from you. I'm not trying to cause any problem in public. I just want you to ask, in the house of your own conscience, did each and every one of you know that our Senate represents 5 constituencies and is the only one of its kind in the country? Don't answer. Just think within yourself. Faculty, students, officers of administration, officers of research, staff, that we proudly stand together, that we've dedicated ourselves to the University of Oregon and to Oregon and educating your children and all the children of this state who would come to our university, and to making education in Oregon better for everyone. And that would be all of the institutions. We don't stand alone, excluding all other institutions. We share so many things with each other. I just wonder, how much do you really know about us? Because I've been in the Senate now for quite a while. Last year I was president-elect. This year I'm president. Next year I'll be immediate past president. We've never had any interaction with you. I'm not saying... Now, I must say, in the last few days, I've had some really substantive conversations with Chancellor Pernsteiner, and I want to thank him for his collaboration, and I look forward to more in the future. But you are making a decision based on no knowledge of true substance, of true meaning. You are taking into your hands the life of an individual, Richard Lariviere, who has given exceptional service. He came here from another state with a vision that has inspired us all, that has asked us to dream and to develop ourselves beyond what we had thought possible. He asked the whole system to do this. He was not beholden to do this. What other university president in this country has done something of this magnitude? What other president has led its university within only 2.5 years to the heights that we are now ascending? And for Oregon, I'm going to answer your question, and by the way, everything I've said relates to that answer. I'm the president of the board myself, Matt. President of the Capella Romana. It's a choral organization in Portland with a national and international touring schedule. I sit on the board of the Pacific Youth Choir. I absolutely believe in music for youth. We formed that choir to make up for the difference in music programs at the high school level, because so many of them were failing that we took it on our own initiative to create that choir. I sit on the board of the Santa Fe Desert Chorale, so I know what it's like to sit in your seats, all of your seats. I am a board member and I am a president of a board. And I have to deal with personnel matters, and very difficult ones. If you think education is difficult, just look at the arts. Okay. You know what I'm saying. When we make a decision, we take all factors into consideration. We don't decide on the future of an individual's life, the future of an organization's life, based on one personnel matter, when all other indicators are that the success has been exceptional in every category, and that we need the leadership of this individual, Richard Lariviere, in order to go forward. We need his leadership. Where will we find someone else who can lead us within 2.5 years, failing financial support from the state, below 6%, 5.8%, and sinking? Where will we find someone to help us achieve these miracles that you rightfully expect? You expect us to educate the children of Oregon. You expect us to achieve world-class standards. You expect all these things, and we are dedicated to providing them. But where are we going to find someone to lead us and give us the exceptional leadership that this man has given us in 2.5 years with all of these challenges? This decision weighs heavily on all of us. And as a member of several boards and president of one, I hope you will consider everything that I'm saying now. And thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for your testimony. And thank you for this exchange as well.
And by the way, I should correct myself. Where are we going to find a man or woman of this quality? I was caught up in the heat of the moment, so I was referring to him in particular.
Forgive you. I hope you appreciate what we have to get through, and I would continue with this, and I would. Anyone who knows me would attest. I want you to know that you've been heard, and I really appreciate your testimony. Obviously, there's a vote that will take place regardless of its outcome. You have my and the board members' very heartfelt commitment to the University of Oregon, and I hope that we will earn your trust in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Keir. With that, terribly behind on the agenda, I would like to call upon Ben Eckstein. Is Ben with us?
It's on the telephone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ben is on the telephone. It's my understanding Ben is taking tests and is...
I'm actually... Sorry, I'm on the phone with President Donegan.
Okay, wonderful. So with that, Ben, as I'm sure you know, is the president of the Associated Students of the University of Oregon. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, President Donegan. Can you all hear me? Am I good?
No. That was a mistake. She's still on.
President Donegan, Chancellor Kearns-Steiner, and members of the State Board. I would like to first thank the Board for the opportunity to address you today as we take up consideration of an issue of the utmost importance to the University of Oregon. I want to thank the faculty, students, and staff who traveled to be at your meeting today to express their perspectives on this issue. I'd also like to thank you for allowing my good friend and colleague, Robert here, the opportunity to address you on behalf of the faculty of the University of Oregon. I gave much thoughtful consideration to how I could best represent the students whom I serve in your meeting today. I'm aware that most of this discussion will center on the contract of President Richard Lariviere, and I know that many of those here today came to offer their perspectives on this issue. As the representative of the student body of the University of Oregon, I feel that my testimony can best serve to emphasize the importance of stakeholder involvement in any decisions about the future of our university. Students are deeply impacted by the decisions made about our education at every level. Decisions made by our university administrators, by this board, and by our legislators and our governor. Thus, moving forward, students, faculty, and staff of the University of Oregon must be critically and heavily engaged in the process of directing the future of our university. The decision you make today will impact the University of Oregon community, and it is vital that you do everything in your power to engage community leaders, including myself, Dr. Kier, and other representatives of our university community as the conversation about the future of our flagship institution moves forward. I strongly urge this board to ensure that the invitation for myself and for Dr. Kier to testify today is merely the beginning of an ongoing process of inclusion and shared governance as we determine the future of our institution. This process must be thorough and continuous. We are acting at a crucial point in history for Oregon public education. As we look to the future, we have many serious issues to address. Strong and commit to including and empowering our community in the fight to protect access and affordability of public post-secondary. Too many of my constituents are struggling to fulfill the promise of an affordable quality education. Too many of my constituents are stalling their educational aspirations due to the crushing financial burden of a University of Oregon education. And far too many of my constituents are finding that their post-secondary success is met with equally impressive debt as they seek to put their degrees to use. As we have seen here today, the university community is more than willing to come together and weigh in on the toughest decisions facing our university, our state board of higher education, and our state. I know that the university community is willing and ready to focus this energy on making our university the best place it can be, and on ensuring that anybody who wants to be here can get here. The students, faculty, and staff of the University of Oregon want to serve as partners to the state board as we work to advance the interests of our institution and our students. I call on this board to intentionally and thoughtfully engage students in all decisions made about the institution that mean so much to us and that we care for so deeply. Our state board has an important responsibility to consider the unique needs and perspectives of each of our public institutions of higher education, and to put the stakeholders on each campus at the center of its decision-making processes. I hope that moving forward, this board takes every possible measure to fulfill that responsibility and to empower students, faculty, and staff at the University of Oregon to decide how our institution can move forward together. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to speak and for your interest in ensuring the student voice is represented in your deliberations. I know that you are faced with difficult decision, and I thank all the university community members who have come today to offer their guidance as you make these decisions. I welcome further consultation from the members of the board and the Chancellor's office as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I wanted to also offer the opportunity for any board members to respond to Ben. Obviously, we have an agenda we have to get through, but I want to give all board members the respect, the opportunity to respond to Ben. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Next on the agenda is Dr. Richard Lariviere, President of the University of Oregon.
President Donegan and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. This past week has been extraordinary. I've been humbled and I'm grateful for the support from faculty, students, and friends of the University of Oregon over the last week, and indeed over the last 2.5 years. The purpose of today's meeting is to resolve the question of my employment, but ultimately that's a matter of very little consequence. I want to use this opportunity to talk about Oregon's higher education future. Over the past 30 years, higher education in Oregon has experienced a continual decline in state funding and a continual increase in costs to students. For 30 years, the University of Oregon has lost many of its fine faculty to other institutions and has found it increasingly difficult to recruit talented new faculty. The recent faculty salary increases strengthened our fragile hold on our best faculty. But more such efforts, many more such efforts, are necessary if the university is to avoid becoming mired in mediocrity. Oregonians deserve better than struggling to avoid mediocrity. If we hope to find a way out of this march to mediocrity in public higher education, Oregonians deserve our best thinking about new approaches. They deserve our willingness to engage in uncomfortable conversations that may challenge long-standing practices. It should not surprise us, nor should it dismay us, that we disagree about how best to achieve these goals for higher education in Oregon. It's a daunting task. The governor's call for education reform and innovation is a good first step. But this effort will not be measured by good intentions. It will be measured by outcomes. Clinging to old structures and ways of doing business will not deliver the outcomes we all want. The demand for fresh thinking and new models has never been more urgent. It is this sense of urgency that has fueled my efforts over the past 2.5 years, and I expect that that sense of urgency will continue to fuel debate going forward. The changes we advocate are not for the University of Oregon. They are for the people of Oregon. 30 years of disinvestment in higher education has left the university and all of its sister institutions impoverished. The structures now in place for financing and governing our universities offer no hope for moving out of this poverty. If we cannot rise from our current predicament, we will never achieve the goals for educational attainment, knowledge creation, and innovation that are critical for Oregon's future. If we fail to take every action possible to lift ourselves up, we fail Oregon and we betray the future of our children. I strongly believe that the proposals advanced by the University of Oregon for a strong, independent institutional governing board and a new approach to stabilizing our funding provide our best chance for securing an affordable, high-quality education for Oregonians. This is not an attempt to privatize one of the state's public universities. Rather, it is an attempt to preserve the public mission of a great university. That public mission is a sacred trust. I recognize that the board faces an extremely difficult, maybe even impossible task, trying to govern such a diverse set of institutions with widely varying needs and capacities. I'm comfortable that there are, and confident that there are good solutions yet to be developed that could help each public university. Pursuing solutions is what we must do. The response of the University of Oregon community to the news that I am to be terminated is unlike anything that I have seen. As much as I would love to think that this response is about me, I know better. It is an expression of disappointment and long-standing frustration bordering on rage over the hindrances of the University of Oregon's future. These people who so love the university, who have such confidence in its potential, who know what it must do for future generations, had hoped that there was change in the air. They see today's board move as a denial of that change and a blow to their hope. I hope that you'll prove them wrong. I hope that you'll understand their passion, their frustration, their pent-up need as the hopeful signs that they really are. These are people who want a university that will flourish, a university that will stand with the world's best, a university that will bring the wealth of discovery to Oregon. We desperately need to rebuild our broken system of governance and funding in Oregon higher education. Oregonians deserve no less than our deepest commitment to this. Now is the time for all of those who care about the future of higher education, and I count this board in that number, to ensure that outcomes make for progress and positive change. You have had my commitment to this goal for the past 2.5 years. If I'm not to continue as president of the university, I know that others will carry this effort forward. And I sincerely hope that they'll have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lariviere. I want to also offer any of the directors an opportunity to respond to Dr. Lariviere's questions. Obviously, the board members will have an opportunity to speak later, but if there's any director questions or responses, Dr. Lariviere. Okay.
Chair Donegan, I am going to wait till the end of the public comment to make any comments that I might have so that they benefit from whatever else might be said. So I only wanted to say to President Lariviere that not responding isn't having disrespect to you. I actually appreciated much of what you just said. And the sadness of all of this is the predicament we find ourselves in that you may not take responsibility for in any respect, but I think that the history we've had suggests that you need to, and the great sadness is that we're at this point. I'll say whatever else I have to say for the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And I would just echo that, Dr. Lariviere. I very much appreciated your comments, and I'll have my own comments later, and so please don't take my lack of response as any sign of disrespect. Thank you.
Don't be shy.
Fair enough. Okay. I will try to project. Okay, we are now on to the next portion of our agenda, which is the public testimony. And I've been told that public testimony will be held in a manner that will allow as many of you to be heard as possible. This will require a very tight protocol in terms of timing. As is policy for all regular board meetings, you will be given 3 minutes to address the board. We're going to use this guideline during the special meeting. We ask that you respect the time restrictions so that your fellow audience members might also have the opportunity to speak. We will conclude this public comment period in exactly 1 hour. Okay. We have received a great deal of public comment via email and welcome additional public comment in written form. So thank you, everyone who did sign up. We quite possibly have more than an hour's worth of sign-up, so I will apologize ahead of time for anybody that doesn't get to speak. But I want to start by going down the list, and it looks like... Okay, looks like we're going to go three at a time for logistical reasons. And I will start with Senator Chris Edwards, Susie Pape, and
Don Tyson.
Don Tyson. Yeah, excuse me?
Don Tyson.
Don Tyson? Sorry,
So if you'd come, please, to a microphone. Press here. Thanks,
Nathan. And is Susie Pape here?
Sure. Please remember to use the mics as best you can. And
Sure.
as I'm sure you're familiar, we use the typical red green.
Okay, thank you, Senator Edwards. We will start the public input session with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Donegan and Chancellor Pernsteiner, members of the board. My name is Chris Edwards. I'm a state senator representing the north half of Eugene. I am also a humbled OSU alumni, licking my wounds from this weekend's travesty. But let's make it clear that, that as a public official, as an Oregonian that cares very much about our education system, and as an OSU alumni, I'm sure that that there's much that we all agree on, and in fact, we probably agree on more than we disagree on. But I want to make it very clear that I strongly disagree with the proposed termination of President Lariviere. Myself and many legislators from whom you've received a letter this last weekend object to the termination. For quite some time, we all know that the Oregon University system has been flat on its back, struggling to maintain financial viability while maintaining excellence in academic and research opportunity. Meanwhile, policymakers, bureaucrats have struggled to reorganize the deck chairs on a sinking ship. But I haven't seen any great proposals come forth to really make transformative change. Now, we did some things in the legislature this last session, which I think are good on the margins, but I'd hardly call them transformative. Amidst this environment, Richard Lariviere has come forth with vision for transformative change, with passion for excellence, and for providing real educational opportunities for middle class and ordinary Oregonians. Now, I get that as a board, you may not want a rogue leader at the helm of the University of Oregon. I get that. And if we were talking about President Lariviere's not cooperating with run-of-the-mill board objectives, then perhaps I would agree. But I get a sense that a lot of the very essence of the disagreement between the board and President Lariviere is, in fact, what he is being punished for, and that is increased autonomy for the University of Oregon and the freedom to lead the University of Oregon to be great. Great in terms of what matters to policymakers, to educators around the state, and that is providing world-class educational opportunity to middle-class Oregonians, to ordinary Oregonians, not just the wealthy. Now, Lariviere has bucked the system, and he has fought to keep the U of O from becoming ensnared in system-wide policies and objectives that ensure that the entire system stays together as it circles the drain.
Thank you, sir. Your allocated time is up.
I'm wrapping up right now. in a time when his leadership is exactly what we need. Now, it's this type of willingness to buck the system is exactly what we need. I think it would be a tragedy to dismiss him as president at the University of Oregon, and I thank you sincerely for holding this public meeting and for taking this matter under the consideration. And obviously, you've seen the unity and the hope that he's brought to the University of Oregon, and in doing so, he's probably been one of the best things that's happened to my city in the last couple of decades. And I thank you for considering that.
I would just ask everyone, in order to get through as many public comments as possible, if you can please limit your applause and try to stay within the 3 minutes. So thank you again. Next on our list is Ms. Susie Pepe.
Thank you very much. Chancellor Pernsteiner, Chairman Donegan. The mere idea, I'm going to get right to it because we don't have much time. The mere idea that the Oregon State Board of Higher Education would not renew University of Oregon President Richard Lariviere's contract reeks of badly played politics and reckless disregard for the future of higher education in Oregon. I am terribly disappointed that President Lariviere's contract is even at issue. I believe that by not renewing this contract, the Oregon system is telling students, faculty, donors, and the nation that mediocrity is acceptable and expected. Richard Lariviere was hired to build on former President Dave Frohnmeyer's legacy. President Lariviere accepted this challenge with professionalism, creativity, and determination to make the University of Oregon an even better institution. He has been clear, inclusive, innovative, and urgent in his charge. Now I believe he is being pushed out for these very reasons that he was hired. In his short tenure at the University of Oregon, President Lariviere has clearly articulated an exciting and achievable vision for the university, a vision based on bringing faculty, staff, administration, students, donors, and friends of the university together in ways that inspire collaboration, innovation, and creativity toward one commonly shared goal: excellence for the University of Oregon and excellence for the state of Oregon. We all agree the current model for funding education in our state must change. President Lariviere has challenged the business-as-usual mentality. He not only talked about change, but he found ways to make it happen through developing and advocating for the new partnership plan. He's tirelessly worked for the state and made options for educational possibilities affordable. He has done this work in the face of dwindling state support for higher education, increasing costs, and state board of higher education that moves far too slowly for the people they serve. President Lariviere's vision and actions have inspired faculty, staff, and donors at the University of Oregon. He is poised to accomplish great things that will result in greater prosperity for all Oregonians. By not extending President Lariviere's contract, the state will be sending a clear message to Oregonians and those throughout the world that those who challenge the status quo need not apply. I'm wrapping up. I've got one thing to say. Thank you. As a fifth-generation Oregonian and a third generation having attended universities in Oregon, I expect excellence in a state education in Oregon. Our governor indicated that businesses...
Ma'am, thank you for your comments. Unfortunately, your allocated time is over, and it's robbing other people from their comments.
I'm sorry about that, but I'm not going to stop quite yet.
Please do, ma'am.
We as a business
Yes.
have sub-presidents. We did not fire them for being innovative during the last 3 years, and I don't expect you to hire a president and then jerk the rug out from under him.
Thank you.
Now I'm finished.
Next, sir. Done.
Yes. Well, thank you for allowing us to speak. Chairman, members of the board. Board has focused on one element of governance, and in so doing, I think in reality what you've done is miss the central point of what your job is about. It is what is happening on the scene in the place that you're governing, which is at the University of Oregon. Faculty, students, and support from donors, all of it that has been captured beyond belief. All I can say is I urge you to defer action and leave it to the structure envisioned by and endorsed by the governor in the next session of the legislature. Why take this precipitous action now? It makes no sense. And believe me, in governance at all levels, it is pretty common to kick the can down the road. And there is no better time than now for you guys to do that.
Point taken. I appreciate all of your comments, and I do apologize. 3 minutes goes by very quickly, and I know folks have a lot to say. So my apologies that we have to keep things moving along, and I very much appreciate it. Next up, just to keep things moving along.
Matt, for listening.
All right, thank you. Next up on the list, we're going to do this in threes again, so please be listening. Tom Feely. I think it's Jan Monty or John? Jan? And then Christian Pape. We're going to hear from the Papes today. Okay. Mr. Feely?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today, Mr. President, Mr. Chancellor, members of the State Board of Higher Education. My name is Tom Feely. I'm a resident of Gladstone, Oregon. I represent myself here today. I'm not affiliated with any of the other groups that have appeared before you. I am a product of and a stakeholder in the Oregon University system. I graduated from Portland State University. My daughter is currently attending Portland State University. In fact, she is in class right now in this very building. My son is a graduate of the University of Oregon, and admittedly, I'm an avid Duck fan. We're very much looking forward to hosting the first Pac-12 championship game this Friday at Autzen Stadium. I have seen firsthand the benefits of President Lariviere's leadership. He has dared to step out of the state of Oregon's long-term dance with educational mediocrity. While some of his ideas and decisions have run counter to the status quo, his bold leadership and vision is needed at this time for the University of Oregon and the entire Oregon University system. Just because he is not sitting idly by while the state of Oregon defunds every level of education in this state is no reason to fire him in June, let alone in December. While I retain hope that some of Governor Kitzhaber's ideas for educational reform will work, they will not bear fruit for years. For too long, this state has accepted a volatile revenue base and has cut educational funding. I served for 9 years in the Budget Committee of the fifth largest school district in Oregon, the last 3 of which I was chair. I have seen firsthand the devastation that repeated years of budget cuts have wrought on the quality of education in this state. I also see it every week in a third-grade classroom of 38 students in which I volunteer. Strong leadership and vision are needed at this time to reverse this downward spiral. Strong leadership needs to be rewarded and not punished. I, too, am concerned that this decision has seemingly been made out of the public eye and without input from any of the numerous stakeholders. This is not the Oregon way that rewards open discussions and thoughtful decisions. I urge you to reconsider your pending decision and to extend the President's contract.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jen.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Jan Monty. I'm a trustee of the University of Oregon Foundation. I'm also lead the Seattle Regional Council in all of our efforts to support the university in Puget Sound. I'm here today because I couldn't not be here today. Richard Lariviere has changed my life. He's changed the life of a lot of people who are volunteers in this room who believe in the university and what it stands for. Let me tell you why Richard Lariviere changed my life. I became involved with the University of Oregon as a director of the Alumni Association, and then heard Dave Frohmeyer speak about the state funding cut in 1994. I stepped up, made a gift, and the next thing I knew I was involved, and I've never stopped since. Richard Lariviere, David was hard to replace. We didn't know how that would possibly happen, but David Frohmeyer was the right guy at the right time. Richard Lariviere is the right guy at the right time right now for this university. We're on fire. He has us motivated. We're one. We are a team, and we don't want a divorce. We have a very happy marriage. We don't want a divorce. And a divorce is not a good thing. It's painful. It's not necessary. One of the things that the foundation board would like to do, and this came out in a letter that one of our foundation members sent forward, was let the foundation board counsel Richard. He's good at the what. He's not so good at the how. And the how is hard. Culture change is hard. I teach leadership. I'm a private consultant. I teach leadership. And I teach culture change. And it's difficult, and it's dicey, and it requires a lot of finesse. And a bull in a china closet who's on fire doesn't really pay attention very often to the how. And that's a job we'd love to take on. The foundation board is not charged with that responsibility. We would be honored to take on the role of Richard's kitchen cabinet until this new governing board's in place, and help in whatever way we can to keep our leader. He's the right guy. He's the one we want. We don't want a divorce.
Thank you.
I had several remarks that I wanted to mention today, and then I heard President Lariviere give his talk before each one of you. And I was marveled at the fact, here's a gentleman who each one of you, though a difficult decision, has probably already come to in wanting to remove him from the presidency of the University of Oregon. And throughout that whole conversation that he had and the speech that he gave each one of you was not regarding keeping his job, but the future of the University of Oregon and the university system within this state. For the past 3 decades, we have been marred with soundbite after soundbite of politicians stating the need for education reform with little success. There's no question we all agree that the current model for funding education in our state is ill-suited for long-term stability and must change. The time for change is upon us, and the ability to effect that change rests in the awareness to recognize this opportunity. Throughout the course of history, examples of visionary leaders wanting similar results, disagreeing with the process of how to accomplish them, inevitably end with one of those leaders being dismissed, and the ultimate result is never changed. I urge you to take the road less traveled, the road that will provide higher education in this state with the appropriate tools to independently manage their unique and different challenges. And having Richard Lariviere at the helm of the University of Oregon will effect this change, will provide better education for my 2 young boys in this state, and we won't see them go someplace else. President Richard Lariviere went to great lengths in his attempts to create an independent board of directors for each of Oregon's public universities. There are far too many differences and challenges with which are unique to each school that to have one board oversee them is truly inadequate. Really? 1 minute? It does go quick. Here before you, documented in the petition submitted with over 6,000 signatures, are the stakeholders of the University of Oregon urging you to retain this individual. He is the right leader at the right time to lead our great university. He is a man of great character, a man with great vision, and a man which any business, organization, or educational institution would be fortunate to have. And the university at this moment in time can still say he is our president. This remarkable man the University of Oregon is proud to have him as our leader, and your actions today will determine whether this remarkable man continues to lead this great and treasured asset in the state of Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Pestek. Thank you. The next three are, I think it's Ryan, it might be Ryan Pepe, Rachel Kane, and Laura Hinman. Did I get that right? Is it Ryan Pepe?
Yeah. Okay. There's a theme.
We came together off the top of the list. Okay. Okay, thank you. So, Laura? Okay, thank you, Laura.
Great. Hi, I'm Laura. I'm a junior at the University of Oregon. I'm also here, like Ben, as a representative of the ASUO, the Student Government Office. I've been a senator on that office for 3 years now, and also the president of Panhellenic, representing fraternity and sorority life. I'm here today for 3 reasons. I'd like to first let you know how many students are concerned about this issue. How many students didn't get their chance to voice their concerns because of the timing of this decision. This decision was made over Thanksgiving break. This is also dead week for us. We're in finals, and so many students wanted to come and voice their concerns. So I'm just one, and there's a couple others in this room if you want to wave. But yeah, there's just a few of us here. There are so many students who want to support our president. I also want to share my personal experience working with President Lariviere. I'm an out-of-state student. I'm from California. I left a broken system. I left a broken system to come find hope in a new system. Before I even got to the university, before school even started, before I'd taken classes or met professors or anything, I took a leadership class. And President Lariviere spoke at that class. And one of the first things he said is, "Welcome to a new year. Welcome to a year of excellence." And that was it was so exciting for me to hear that as a student leader, as someone who wanted to be involved and give back to the university. I want Oregon to be my new home. I don't want to leave. I don't want to go back to a broken system. He has continually walked around campus, shaking hands with students, walking around. He sat in the student section for a football game a couple times. He has a very good personal relationship with our students. And I would like the board to please consider what the university Senate president said about our shared governance and our constituents. Students value that we have the ability to speak, that I can speak here, maybe shaky, maybe non-articulate, but I'm here and you're allowing me to speak, and we value that. I also would like to just ask for something that I think a lot of us would like to know. So I understand that this is a personnel issue, and I've been learning a lot this past 3 years. But one thing I've realized is that transparency is very important. I've sat on the University Senate, I've sat on Student Senate, I've sat in private meetings with President Lariviere, and throughout all those encounters with my university, there's been transparency. And so I ask this board to please be transparent about your decision today, because as a student, I don't understand why this is happening. Thank you.
Very articulate. We're going to get through this. Board members will all have an opportunity to speak, and I will say I do anticipate that that'll be my attempt. Next up, Rachel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board, Matt, Jonathan, and George Princeton, Chairman, President. I'm here because what you're doing is wrong, flat out wrong. I'm a God-fearing woman. I come from a family that has been in the state of Oregon going on 212 years. This man is stellar. I had the privilege of working with a man who is stellar, Andy Grove, president of Intel Corporation. It's very, very rare that you ever get to work with excellence of that stature, much less know them and have them be a part. To do anything other than to allow him to continue in his tenure would absolutely be a horrible, horrible travesty in this state for the students and for all of the people who support what he's doing. I find, on the second note here, I have been up and peeked into this room many times to find what the gentleman said behind me when he started, that he's never seen or had been invited to any meetings here. I have poked my head in, and there is never anyone up in this room except you all. There's no communication with the public, with the citizens, with the taxpayers. I have went on to try to find things that have been taken and done in this board. There's no record of it. When asked why, it's because there's not enough people to help. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's no accountability, transparency. I am so glad that Kitzhofer is trying and is going to do away with, I hope, this board. My goal is to support anything that puts the autonomy back into the community colleges, back into the university system, and allow them to divest what is suited to their needs and to the direction of their university and their colleges respectively. Only they know what is best for them. They have the relationship. And ladies and gentlemen, by the way, it is all about the relationship. Anything that ever creates great success is about the relationship. President Lariviere, I have a daughter who attends University of Oregon. I feel so unbelievably blessed that that man is the head of that university. She is so happy there. I go down and visit the students. They're right. There is an energy there that you can't bottle. It just comes because there's a unity that comes from great leadership. So I implore you, please, please, leave his tenure alone and let him continue to do the great things that he's going to do. He is a stellar man, and he is the right one for this university. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Sorry. I'm used to going the other way. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Ryan.
Thank you. Matt, if Mr. Dunnigan, if you're not taking questions directly right now, then I do have one question that I would like you to see if you could answer for me in a few minutes. If this is a personnel issue and it's not a policy issue, would you go on record as supporting full independent governing boards for all University of Oregon, for all universities in the state of Oregon? I'd like you to try and answer that the best that you can.
Actually, my comments are going to directionally discuss that.
Okay. Okay. But my next few thoughts are for Hannah and Farbud. And I just want you to know that I have, over my young career, and I think we're probably in the same age bracket, been in a couple of hot seats myself. And you're certainly sitting in two of them right now. And I'm not here to lecture you, but I'm here to ask you to ask your board to rethink this decision. Step back. Take a deep breath. There are some incredible egos that are on this board and in our state government and, frankly, at our university. But it's important that you two help lead this change. The rest of the board is very knowledgeable. I don't mean any disrespect to the rest of you at all. But as I look around the table, as many of these comments were going on, I think that there is a bit of rethinking that maybe some of you are hopefully pondering. And it's my hope that we may not make any rational decisions today. Don't make any by the end of the year. Take a deep breath. Take a break. Reconvene the meeting. You guys have the power to do that, and we can make the right decision. But let's not rush to anything. We've only been doing this now for well, y'all have been doing it and having these discussions for months, but the rest of the community and the public and the university would like to see a little more thoughtfulness go into whatever decision you two and the rest of the board finally come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, the next three will be Andrew Marcus, Bruce Blonigan, and Paul Kemerzol. So, why don't we? Are you Andrew?
I'm Andrew.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Andrew Marcus. I'm a professor of geography at the University of Oregon. I've twice served as president of the University Senate at the University of Oregon, and I'm presently the Associate Dean for Social Sciences at the University of Oregon. Really most important in terms of what I want to share with you today actually is that I'm the father of two daughters who both have received their degrees from the University of Oregon, and I want to speak a little bit to that over the next few minutes. I had the privilege of actually sharing the stage with Susie Papé at the end of the campaign in Oregon, and I was allowed to express my thanks on behalf of all of the faculty, staff, and administration for the incredible generosity that had come to our university over the previous years. That moment, that incredible moment when we could say that we had completed this campaign not only successfully, but achieving more dollars than we'd ever imagined, put fire through the university. It was a sense that we had created the base that we needed to move forward from. I've seen that fire in many, many ways, but perhaps the way I'd like to share with you that is most dramatic to me is the number of faculty and staff who have their children going to the University of Oregon. Both of my daughters went through, had an exceptional education. Our previous provost's child went through and had an exceptional education. Our present sitting provost's child has gone through the University of Oregon. I cannot name how many people I know within the staff, faculty, and administration whose children attend this university. And I want you to know that this is something that's truly magic. I have never known a single other public university that has that kind of commitment from its faculty to give the people they most love on the faces of this earth to the institutions they are part of. That is a spirit, an intangible thing that has come to life at the University of Oregon over the past few years that I really fear is jeopardized today. And my deep, deep request of all of you is to not just think about some of the elbows that have gone out with Richard Lariviere, think about some of the difficult moments that all of you have experienced, but think about this really intangible kind of magical spirit that has evolved over time in our university, and particularly has reached this pinnacle where now we are moving so quickly upwards that people can't believe it. I don't like to go to professional conferences anymore and talk about my university because everyone doesn't want to hear it. Oh, go away. Our university, we're losing positions. We're in trouble. Right now, the University of Oregon is a place that we are so proud to be part of. Please retain Richard Lariviere. He's been critical to making this come to life, and he's critical in carrying this to the future. Thank you.
I'm Bruce Blonigan. I'm the Philip H. Knight Professor of Social Science and also the Department Head of the Economics Department at the University of Oregon, and I want to thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I'm first going to say on a personal note that I think Richard Lariviere is an amazing person and leader. I've had a number of interactions with him, and I've seen him get emotional about educating children, educating our students in Oregon, and you can see this from everybody that's been speaking, right, how inspirational he is on this issue. At the same time, I've also seen him make very well thought out, very hard decisions at the University of Oregon to professionalize its administration and to set it on the right path. And that's what's really inspired people on the campus, that internally he's also organizing this university to basically take off. And then with the new partnership ideas that he's brought forward and the innovation, that's also captured people's imagination quite a bit. So on a personal note, I certainly say, please, you need to think before you make this decision. Now, as an economist, Economics is about the science of thinking about how people make decisions. And I'm very concerned about the potential decision you're going to make here on a number of bases. The first one is information. Okay, we know in economics, and I think it's common sense, that you make poor decisions when you're not fully informed. From everything I've heard here today, I don't feel like you're fully informed. I hear from other folks that you haven't been on campus. You haven't interacted with our UO Senate. The students don't feel like you've actually thought about what's going on here. We have over 6,000 people here saying that they want to have input, and they didn't feel like this was the right decision. Okay? In fact, what you've told us is that you're going to make your decision on a very narrow set of information here. Personnel matters. And unfortunately, when I hear you guys talk, it sounds more like personal matters than personnel matters. And we need to know a lot more about that. Finally, incentives. Okay? Incentives matter. And let's, like Chip Kelly would say, faceless opponent. Let's not even think about Richard Lariviere over there. Let's think about the situation you're creating right now. Who is going to have the incentives to come to the University of Oregon and take over leadership that we will have confidence in and can lead us forward, given what's going to happen here and what's going to feel like to many of us as a very capricious move by the Higher Education Board. I'm sorry, it feels that way to us. Okay? And it's going to feel that way externally. What incentives will donors have to invest in the university to think that they'll actually get a real return for this now that a board can come in and just change leadership immediately without input from the community and the donors? Okay? And what are your incentives? What is it? Why are we at this timing right here? Why do we have to do this now? I know there's some other contract renewals on the board. I know that there's a legislative session coming up. And when I see people making decisions, I think about what are their incentives. And yes, the 500-pound gorilla is that your stake as a board, your future as a board, is also at stake, potentially, in what's coming up over the next 6 months. And so now we're going to go through a decision with this. So,
let me move on to the next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Camerzelt, student at the University of Oregon. I, quite frankly, would have been comfortable letting you go on. But I just want to say, in your opening statements, President Donegan, there was a lot of discussion about an erosion of trust. And as a student at the University of Oregon, my first thought is, what are you telling me about yourselves? What are you telling me about the board? What can I trust when right before I go to Thanksgiving, my family, I get a message that the president has been kind of backed into a corner? And you said that it was based on that the information was released prematurely, but I feel like this is a conversation that needs to be had publicly. We are the students. We are the faculty. We are the University of Oregon, and we're proud to be so. And again, faceless opponent, President Lariviere, by the way, has done an amazing job at the university. You hired a man to lead a university, and he has led it to heights it's never seen. So, let's take him out of the equation for a moment. He would say it's about the benefit of the school. What are you telling us as students when we can't trust that our president's going to be there to finish the year? Is the school going to burn by June if he stays? Is the school really going to be put in such a position if we just stop and think about this and get some input from the parties who are actually affected by this? If he's out of job, the effect to you, I question what it will be. The effect to us as students is immense. And then above us, though, we have a board that we feel like we can't trust because they make decisions behind our back without our knowledge that we don't feel like we have a voice in. I appreciate you having this public meeting. I really do. But when I go back down to Eugene, regardless of what I feel about the university, the Oregon University System Board, regardless of what I feel, when I go back to Eugene, I'm wondering exactly what I can trust and what I can change as a student and what I can really stand by and say, yes, this is the University of Oregon. I'm proud to be a Duck. Forgive me for using this popular culture, this culture metaphor, but regardless of politics, the number of people I see sitting here is a lot less than 1% of the 99% representing the University of Oregon. And we haven't had a say in anything. And I know for myself, I'm a little disappointed in that. And also using a famous quote, despite the response here, I don't think we landed here at the OUS Board Meeting. I feel a little bit more like the OUS Board Meeting landed on me by the decisions that you guys have made. I'm done.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Caitlin Easter, Brian Obie, and James Harper. Dr. James Harper. Okay, thank you. Caitlin?
My name is Caitlin Easter. I'm a senior at the University of Oregon, born and raised in Gresham, Oregon, local student. I've worked for 3 years within student affairs, both as a student ambassador and currently within the Dean of Students. So I think I have a pretty interesting take on this matter. I keep hearing the word system over the last few days. The system needs to stay together. The system is at risk. The inferred conclusion being that the board knows what is best for this system. Break down the system and what comprises the building blocks. Universities, within that, administrators, within that, colleges, but above all, students. Universities provide higher education for the students. This board was created to regulate the university system, but above all, regulate the quality of the higher education experience for students. In the past 2.5 years, there has been drastic change in the quality of the college experience at the University of Oregon. There are boards and factions of the U of O directly responsible for those changes, but the universal catalyst is Dr. Richard Lariviere. I could tell you the countless stories of how Richard Lariviere touched individuals around campus, including his open door policy, participation in events hosted by student groups, and ongoing support and recruitment of multicultural communities as never seen before at the university. Or you can see for yourselves the impact he has had on campus, both in student life and academics. Until Richard Lariviere, the U of O was not seen as the academic flagship it is today. This is evident alone in the record amount of applications and this year's entering class GPA and current levels of multicultural students at the U of O. The fact of the matter is that when Richard Lariviere joined the U of O, the multicultural student percentage was 16.2%. This entering class alone had a percentage of over 30%. That is huge. As a former multicultural recruiter of the University of Oregon, I have seen Richard Lariviere personally make appearances and meet students both in middle school, high school level, trying to get them to come to the U of O, showing them that this is an opportunity for them. This is an opportunity they have never been awarded before. President Lariviere has not only changed how the U of O is perceived, but how the individual student experience can be worthwhile. He's touched countless lives on campus and in the community, and he's changed my student experience personally. And that is why I stand by my president. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next up is Mr. Obie.
Thank you. A little of my background. First, I thank you for the 3 minutes. I drove 2 hours. Paid $12 for parking. Sat here for 2 hours. I'm going to drive 2 hours home. And so these 3 minutes are very important to me, and I hope they're important to you. So I want to talk about your responsibility. I'm the former mayor of Eugene, former president of the Foundation, University of Oregon, former president, Young Presidents Organization of Oregon. So I represent business, the community, and I think donors and supporters of the university. I think it's a cross-section. And I'm looking to you and your responsibility to maintain the trust. You do not have a responsibility to follow the suggestions of your chancellor. Your responsibility is to me and the other people in this audience. I'm sitting here thinking, how many have you sat before a board whose mind's been made up, whose comments have been prepared beforehand? I want you to think about this. This is about leadership. This is about where are we going with this institution. I've worked with Paul Olam, I've worked with Dave Fromeyer, and I've worked with Richard Lariviere. They're outstanding people. And that's a momentum that has taken over 20 years to get going. And what you're tinkering with here is a world-class organization. This is not an average deal. And if you are going to screw it up if you follow this course, big time. And this did not happen by accident. I look to you for leadership. I look for you to maintain trust with this state and get off of the personal issues and really onto the important issues of where are we going with this education. Thank you.
Good. Mr. Harper.
Yes, I'm James Harper in the Department of Art History at the university. I'm very proud to be sitting here next to Brian Obie, who I've never met, but who's a legend, and next to Caitlin Easter, who I didn't know was here, but who is one of the great students that I've had in a couple of classes in the past. I'm proud of the University of Oregon. Somebody said earlier in this session that the university has been on fire. Not burning down, not that comment, but on fire in a good way, blazing with success. And let me tell you, just to focus in on my own little corner of it. In the Lariviere years, we've made 4 new hires. In each of those 4 hires, we have gotten the #1 candidate in the country. Now, that's astonishing. In a state where for a long time good enough has been good enough, here's excellence. We're beating out all those other people. We're getting the best, in each case, the #1 candidate in the country. We have a Japanist from Harvard. We have a modernist from the University of Chicago. We have architectural historians from Princeton and Columbia. All of these people have been here for a year and a half, 2 years, and I'm wondering what's going to happen. All right. The University of Oregon, despite the vaunted pay raises that the president authorized earlier, the University of Oregon is still at about 75% of the normal pay level. Okay. What's going to keep these stars here? All right. What's going to keep these stars here? We don't have buckets of money to throw at them and say, oh, here, we'll pay you better than anybody else. What we've got to do is we've got to harbor what we have. We've got to harbor visionary leadership. The kind of thing that makes a Japanese from Harvard excited enough to be here despite the other offers. Now, Thanksgiving weekend, I don't know how yours was, but ours was pretty lousy. And a lot of people were questioning, what next? What next for the University of Oregon? And I can guarantee you that these 4 young faculty, I haven't spoken to them about it, but I'm going to guess that they have been logging on to College Art Association careers posting, looking for what's the next thing. Do I need to tie myself to the mast of a sinking ship, or am I young enough, bright enough, the top candidate in the country enough to go somewhere else? These aren't people from Oregon. These are people that the university and its pursuit of excellence has attracted. Now, what's going to happen next? All right? You fire the president, you've got to find somebody else. You've got to find somebody to be a placeholder for a couple years of stasis, of just standing still. All right? And in the meantime, I'm going to bet you a nickel the faculty will unionize. I hate to see that coming, but the wind is in those sails, and you've given it a lot of wind in this past weekend. And to my mind, I know a lot of my colleagues in the room will disagree with me, but to my mind, faculty unionization is a ticket to mediocrity. I see this university heading towards a kind of standstill. The challenge, we've got these tip-top people. Let's try to keep them. Let's do everything we can to keep them. It's in your power. It is in your power to send a message to them that it's going to be okay, and that you value what they value.
Okay. I have a sad announcement. That is, this will be the last slate, the next 3. We're just simply running out of time, so my apologies. So with that, we have Dr. Bill Harbaugh, Nathan Tublitz, and Lisa Frankel. And I think all 3 are faculty members. So thank you for joining us. And why don't we start with Dr. Harbaugh?
So thank you. I'm Professor Harbaugh. I'm Professor of Economics. I am also the person who filed an ethics complaint against the board because I believe you made this decision in secret without public consultation. I think that was a wrong thing to do. I am glad that you're now having a public meeting to discuss President Lariviere's employment status. I hope that you will consider the heartfelt comments in support of President Lariviere that you've heard today and reevaluate that decision in the light of the new information you now have and which you should have collected before you made this decision in secret. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Tublitz.
My name is Nathan Tublitz. I'm a professor of biology and immediate past president of the University Senate.
Louder.
Into the microphone, please. Thank you, sir.
I'm immediate past president of the University of Oregon Senate, and I am a professor of biology. And my question to you is, what the heck are you doing? Okay? Let's step back and look at what the purpose is of education. The purpose of education is to teach our students how to live in the 21st century and how to think critically and express themselves. I brought you my neurobiology exam, which I will give on Thursday. I really can't give it to you because I can't let you give it to my students. Okay? But this is the purpose of this exam. You can look at it. The purpose of this exam is to teach people how to think critically and to evaluate all information. What message are you sending to our students, to my students, when you make decisions in the dark, secretly, when you have a public meeting here after you had a private meeting? Usually it should be the other way around. But you had a private meeting first in executive session. It seems like the decision's already made. You haven't talked to anybody at the University of Oregon. We're a university of 29,000 strong. And what has happened with our president is that we have generated hope. I came here 25 years ago, and I have watched I changed my mind. I actually ran for the University Senate presidency, and I've worked with Richard closely for the last year and a half. And what I've seen is that he is the embodiment of hope at this university. And what you're doing is cutting off the knees of the hope of this entire institution. So I want to end by asking you another question, and that is what you've heard before, and that is why the rush. But I want to put forward a possible solution, and that is this is not a national emergency, okay? This is not the state of war. There are other alternatives to be able to address this. You could come back and say, let's talk about this. Let's find a mediated solution. Let's discuss this for the benefit not only of our president and for you, but for the 29,000 people who work at the University of Oregon and the 106,000 University of Oregon alumni who believe in the place and who you've completely destroyed in terms of their feelings about what the future of this institution. So I beg you to try and think of another way to move forward and not make the decision that it seems you've already made.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Feichel?
Allowing me to speak, allowing all of us to speak. I study Shakespeare. I study a guy who wrote ideas 400 years ago that still have a life today. Shakespeare is why I went into higher education to begin with. The idea that ideas have long, long lives, that ideas are more powerful than anything else. Our nation, our world is in a mess right now. People are occupying everywhere, right? We're occupying here today. I mean, this is a time when if we as people committed to public education can't somehow do something to rise above personality differences, to move forward together, what are we going to do? I mean, if we who have the public trust of public education can't somehow believe in the power of an idea over the person who stands for that idea, over the politics surrounding that idea, if we can't recognize that our decisions have lives that go far beyond all of our individual human lives, then really we are sunk. I mean, not just we here, but I mean we in the biggest sense. So I just beg of you, slow down, slow way down. Let's take a time out here, right? We are all proud to be Oregonians. We are all proud to serve this state. There's not a single person here who cares about something more than the education of this state's young people, old people, middle-aged people. Please, slow down. Thank you.
Okay, well, that concludes our public input session, and I just want to take the opportunity on behalf of all the board members to once again thank you all who did provide such impassioned and articulate testimony, and also apologize to those of you who didn't. We just simply ran out of time. So next on the agenda is all right. Let me. There's been a long pause here. Let me start by asking Chancellor Pernsteiner to once again read his recommendation for the board.
Thank you, Matt. I will return back to the recommendation that I made earlier in order to make it clear to the members of the board.
Tell us what you think.
We're going to do that.
Why are you doing? Explain that.
I'm recommending that the board turn to the employment agreement.
No.
And that the board follow subsection B of the termination clause of Dr. Lariviere's employment agreement and terminate the contract without cause, with the provision to Dr. Lariviere of the required 30 calendar days written notice. Should the board agree with that recommendation, the employment agreement will terminate without cause, effective December 28, 2011.
I would like to call for a motion from the board and open the. I would like to call for a motion from the board with regard to the recommendation from Chancellor Pernsteiner.
You take motions from the floor?
Take a time out, guys.
So moved. Second.
What's so
moved?
What's individual votes?
I'm looking for a motion.
Kirk made the motion. I seconded the motion. So the motion's on the table.
So now what we're going to do is open the floor. As I indicated before, we'll open the floor for board discussion.
And if I may, since I don't want to miss any action here, I'd like us to take a restroom break.
Okay.
We do it for 5 minutes.
Yeah. We will. I will certainly respect that request, and we will reconvene here. Let's say at 5 minutes after 5. Thank you.
Can we talk about the Champions contract, please?
Yeah.
I know. Can we do it one more time?
Yeah.
If you're going to stay here,
I moved just 3 chairs out of the way. Are we
Brian?
Charles?
Oh, very good. No, thank you. Yes, that's perfect. Thank you, sir. I'll make sure they get distributed to the board themselves and stay in the record.
Yes, hi, how are you, man?
But where I came from, you wouldn't have arguing that rate with people walking in the back. Oh, and you want to bet on whether you're going to be talking or not?
still there.
Okay. Is Rosemary still there?
Okay, who's going to read the motion?
Whoever made it.
Who's reading the motion?
Is Rosemary still on the phone?
We're going to confirm that.
Is Rosemary still on the
That's
phone?
for clerk. Clerk should read that motion.
I guess you did it.
All right. Okay.
Rosemary.
Hey, Rosemary, are you still there?
I'm here.
All right. Thanks for,
I'll put it in mute though because it's interfered. So.
Okay. Well,
thank
you very much, and thank you everyone for rejoining us. The request was made that somebody actually read the motion, and so I'm going to ask that we step back, and for Director Schuler, who did first the motion, I wanted to ask if you could read the motion, please.
Yeah. I move to accept the Chancellor's recommendation and, according to the terms and requirements of the current employment agreement with Dr. Richard Lariviere, terminate his employment agreement prior to its normal expiration by exercise of the contract provision that authorizes a without cause termination, and direct the Chancellor or designee to discharge any remaining contractual obligations to him, including the required 30 calendar days prior written notice to effect the termination without cause.
And I seconded that motion, just that we need that on the record.
Is there going to be public discussion from board members before the vote?
Yeah.
I'll
said you would answer our question.
Yeah, I'll just.
If you gave us the opportunity to do so, we might get to that point.
Please. This is the process.
No, I just.
Suspicious.
Yeah, I gather that, and I would just ask you to please be patient. I think what you're, just the way, now that the board, the motion's been read, it's been seconded. Now this is the point where I'm going to ask directors if they have anything to say. So, with that, I will.
Why don't I start this off? First off, I would like to compliment the quality of the presentations that have been given us today. I think they've been excellent and on the mark. There's certainly disagreements and points and issues, but overall I think the comments were very, very good. Thank you. As many of you know, I've been a real strong supporter of the University of Oregon, and I hope to continue in that role. I appreciate and I endorse much of what has been proposed by both President Fromeyer and President Lariviere in recent years. We all know, and I think Dr. Keir and many others touched on it here today, that higher education, and I would say education in general in the state of Oregon, is under tremendous stress. And certainly the question of dollars, and in higher education we have a growing demand for what we do. People realize and appreciate the need for a quality education, and of course this is also in terms of enrollment putting pressure on the system. Dealing with this reality requires many major changes. The issues are complex, some ideas are controversial, there is no one simple answer. And again, I think the presentation that Dr. Lariviere gave us today covered that in great detail, and I would say much I certainly agree with. The governor, the legislature, and the board, we have all started work on this change effort with bills and initiatives that were passed in the 2011 legislative session. My real point here is that decisions that are needed are too important to be made in isolation. I think many of you talked about the question of transparency. The University of Oregon is a critical piece of higher education in Oregon. We all take great pride in this university, which is our flagship, a source of strong leadership, supported by a strong and dedicated alumni. We need the leadership of University of Oregon in this process, working with this board, fully engaged, helping to craft the best answers. In the last year, that has certainly not been the case. I think many of us in the room are business managers or leaders in one form or another, and certainly in my case as a chief executive officer of a fairly reasonable company, we invite strong opinions, heated discussions, but at the end of the day, we close ranks. We work to a common goal. Organization integrity, especially at the state level, is important. We cannot allow an important team member to undermine the goals and success of the whole institution. That standard is also true with the relationship between the university leadership, the chancellor, and the Board of Higher Education. That's my comment.
Thank you, Director Ford. I'd like to continue before the vote. I'd like to continue asking if there are any more. Yes, Director Francisconi.
I've had the privilege of listening to eloquent testimony and passionate supporters, but rarely, if ever, have I witnessed the degree of eloquence, but more importantly, kind of passion and dedication and love for the institution and for many of you, this president, which makes me all the sadder. This is one of the saddest days of my professional life. And the reason is that there are no winners today at a time that we need to come together. As some of you have said in your eloquent written testimony as well, this controversy is really about the future of Oregon, the state of Oregon. We cannot be a great state without a great University of Oregon. But we cannot be a great state only with the great University of Oregon. University of Oregon can only be great if the faculty and the supporters believe that they are sustained and supported in their pursuit of excellence, not mediocrity. But the state of Oregon can only be great if the faculty and supporters of all of our universities feel this same sense of commitment. That means we need leaders who challenge us to be great, to be excellent, but not at the expense of others. Last night, I respect, I know that you're not going to be happy, but I do respect that you asked rightfully, instead of me just voting away, to explain where I'm coming from. So I'm not asking you to agree with this, but I feel as if I owe it to you.
When did you decide on your vote?
Last night, President Lariviere sent a message to his supporters that was referred to by Dr. Kyle. He said that our decision, and he repeated it today, he said that our decision concerning whether to renew his contract is, quote, a symptom of the broken system of governance and funding in Oregon higher education that desperately needs changing if Oregon is to achieve the greatness that we all aspire to. That's what he wrote last night. He's right. We need a new partnership with the University of Oregon and all of our public universities. And God knows we need more public funding. But he's dead wrong about why we are considering terminating his contract. We cannot enter into a new partnership with the University of Oregon or any of our universities with leaders who break trust, who do not respect legitimate authority, and who are not committed to the well-being of other institutions who are doing their best to serve the state. The world is in trouble. Oregon is a small state with limited resources, and Oregon is in an international competition for the survival of its economy and the future of our children. Our future depends upon the excellence and collaboration of our flagship university, but also our land grant, our urban university, our small universities, OHSU, and our community colleges. Each demands a leader who challenges us to be great, but who understands in the end that we are all in this together. This is the kind of leadership we expected when we hired the president, and we repeatedly reminded him of it. For reasons I do not understand, and I probably will never understand, he chose to ignore it. Our state needs more.
It's a visionary, and you're not. That's the difference. We want.
Please.
This process, please.
Please.
Your job, then.
Out of respect for this process, please retain.
Thank you very much. Okay. Dave Yates?
Thank you. I'll echo a fair amount of what Director Francisconi has said, but let me start by echoing that the passion and clarity with which you have demonstrated your support, admiration, and loyalty for Dr. Lariviere on the campus is really quite extraordinary, and I do appreciate hearing from you in that regard. And like Director Francisconi, it saddens me that that's not the whole story and the end of the story, but in fact, it is not. In fact, this is in fact not about bold creative leadership nor bold visionary ideas. Those are still on the table. We need to go forward with everything we can do for every university in this state. So I just want to be emphatic on that point. This is about whether one person, no matter how talented, no matter how popular, gets to set his or her own rules and agenda without regard for consequences for the larger whole. To those who say that relieving Dr. Lariviere will condemn the University of Oregon to mediocrity, let me issue an emphatic plea. That will be the case only if we make it a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Out of respect for Dr. Lariviere and this process,
with all due respect and regard for the leadership that Dr. Lariviere has shown on the campus, it is not the presence nor the departure of one person for whatever reason that will determine the excellence of the University of Oregon. Now, how we all act, that includes us, that includes you, going forward will have an effect. So I caution us all, and I include us in this, but I also include you. Do not let mediocrity become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, am I satisfied that we have done all that we need to do to enable each of our universities to thrive in the new normal of reduced public support? Absolutely not. It's a matter of great discomfort. Do I believe we need to go as far as prudent, and that's a long ways, in granting more autonomy to each, consistent with achieving Oregon's goals of access and affordability for Oregon students? Most emphatically, yes. That's the path promised in Governor Kitzhaber's overall education reform. It is the path inherent in the reform of the university system begun with passage of Senate Bill 242. And I agree with Dr. Lariviere that it's certainly not the path of protecting the status quo. But going down that road requires a heightened level of trust at all levels. Trust and collaboration. Unfortunately, the tenure of Dr. Lariviere has gone in exactly the opposite direction. The University of Oregon is a great institution. It's done heroic work for Oregon in the face of diminished public support. I think we have an enormous amount of work to do together to allow it to thrive and to allow our other universities to thrive. And that's why all policy directives or policy issues are still on the table. So I really do plead with you to help us go forward with this, because we do hear you about the needs of the university. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Yaden. I see Director Island.
Yes, please. It's with a serious commitment to public service that I voice my concerns today, along with a great deal of respect for my colleagues here, as well as Dr. Lariviere. It's imperative that we move beyond the emotion of today and roll up our collective sleeves to further the educational opportunities Oregon students want and need to succeed in this global economy. I believe we can move on with a renewed focus on student success and opportunity for all, and we will. Just a reminder that the members of the board are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state senate to oversee all of the public universities in Oregon. We are business and student leaders, CEOs, lawyers, academicians, native Oregonians, tuition-paying parents, donors, and alumni. We're all advocates for higher education, and we're all doing this work voluntarily. We are not public administrators trying to maintain the status quo. And I'll speak for myself. I am not interested in holding this position in perpetuity. The signs that we did not support the singular approach President Lariviere was mounting to the state's education reform initiatives were clear. And we voiced them often to Dr. Lariviere, to U of O advocates, other stakeholders invested in advancing the goals of post-secondary education in Oregon. Today's vote should have come as no surprise.
Please, everyone. Again, out of respect for Dr. Lariviere and this personnel matter.
Just as we afforded you the opportunity to offer your public comments, we'd appreciate the opportunity to offer ours.
Ooh, ma'am.
Collaboration, which we've talked a lot about, requires open and honest communication, a commitment to shared values, and follow through on promises made. Board members kept our end of the agreement to collaborate, and we will continue to do so.
Please. Thank you.
As a general rule, Oregonians do not engage in controversial conversations face-to-face. Oregon nice reigns in all aspects of the state's culture. We like to endlessly admire a problem rather than to act, and we often shy away from making tough choices. But change is inevitable if we're to tackle the challenges facing public post-secondary education against the backdrop of declining state investments, revenues, and per capita income. So all I can do today is implore you to join with us to provide the leadership and the strategic thinking that's going to be necessary to drive the state forward. We need you as allies and strategic partners. We still have an opportunity to create a robust and dynamic post-secondary education delivery system in Oregon. And on a personal note, I would tell you that the drama that has been demonstrated here today and over the past several months, if we could have bottled that energy and put it toward advancing the education reforms that the governor and the legislature put forward, we would have made a lot of forward progress. Thank you.
Show us the harm to other institutions. What? Be specific.
I'm going to ask that we please, again, we extended a courtesy, and we'd ask you to reciprocate. May I? Okay, is there anyone else on the board?
Someone without a prepared statement.
Director Kelly. Director Kelly?
Yeah, I might be that person without a prepared statement. In the course of the public comments, I took a lot of notes. There were a number of things I thought I would address by the time we got here, but I'm going to pass on virtually all of those and try to get out whether you're prepared to accept it or not, and I doubt that you are. Something from the heart on this issue. And I'm going to address the comments to you, President Lariviere, because I think you'll listen to me. What people here may not know is that I had the privilege of being the president of this board for 3 years immediately before July 1st, and so was board president when we hired President Lariviere. And I recall that with a tremendous amount of optimism about what President Lariviere was going to bring to Oregon. And I mean that in the sense of the state, not the university itself, but the state and the university. He has, as you have all attested to, phenomenal skills. Just an extremely impressive person. But then the privilege that the board presidency gave me were a number of occasions to talk with President Lariviere and other people, other leaders at the university about where we were going and how we were going to get there on this issue of greater autonomy for the system and the university. And President Lariviere, I hope you would recall one of those conversations which we had at the White Stag building, just one-on-one. We talked about the methodology of pursuing the goals. We had a meeting that the Chancellor and I attended in Eugene with you, other leaders from the university, and leadership of the Oregon Foundation, the University of Oregon Foundation. We pursued an effort at collaboration in that conversation. It did not come to pass. You will recall the meeting we had with this entire board in June of this year when we discussed the contract renewal for an additional year when your contract was then coming to an end, the initial contract, and we extended that contract for only 1 year, as people know. And during all of those conversations, I think we continued to pursue the idea of a common goal, but the methodology simply didn't jive. And all I'm asking you to do for the benefit of the entire University of Oregon community is simply to acknowledge the share of responsibility for the breach of trust that has led us to the position we are in today that none of us, you or us, want to be in.
I do have some prepared remarks, and I'll say I did just that. I would suspect, as Dr. Lariviere did himself, because he wanted to give a great deal of thought to what he was going to say. Director Kelly was my predecessor as president. I have since been president, and it has been my honor, and I have attempted to serve not just the state of Oregon in general, but I mean specifically the University of Oregon. I have visited the campus. I have interacted fairly extensively. I have become deeply engaged with the new partnership. And I would venture to say, that I'm as knowledgeable about the new partnership as virtually most folks in the University of Oregon community, simply because I find it fascinating. There is no lack of care in me. I have been on the phone with Dr. Lariviere dozens of hours, all throughout the summer. Went to football games together, brought my son, went to the LSU Oregon game in Dallas together. There is no, the sense that there's this aloof board without any care from the University of Oregon. I have to tell you, that deeply hurts me. That is not the case. And I will say, as part of my responsibility as president, is that I do have to get very deeply involved with the details. I'm not going to guess that I have all of the intimacy at the campus level that I would like. That is one of the reasons why I do advocate for local boards. I do. I get it. I get it completely. I do see the restrictions that a state board has. I get those. I do think that somebody needs, and I'll get to this, but somebody needs to look at a state level perspective. We're just too small. as a state. We don't have the public finances to spread inefficiently. We have to concentrate our resources. So I think there is a long, enduring need for a state-level coordinating body. And I would ask you but that doesn't mean that I pretend that this body is going to have the level of intimacy that all of you have got, and which is why I am a very strong proponent of local boards and have been for a long time. This is why one of the reasons why I find the new partnership so interesting. I'm not going to say that I agree with every last bit of it, but I bet you all of you would even have disagreements about the new partnership. It's a very provocative document, a very provocative concept. The endowment, the financing, I mean, that is exactly where I live. The thought of catalyzing new private investment and trying to relieve the burden off of students. I mean, who can't, in this day and age, when you're seeing our kids getting strapped with all this debt, who cannot get excited by that? I get very excited about that. And so I do go to Eugene, and I do see the buzz, and I've got lots of friends in the University of Oregon community. I have known for a long time, it has weighed so heavily on me, seeing the dysfunction. And I would just ask you to grant me this. We might not have the level of familiarity with all the workings of the university at the campus level, but you must grant some reciprocity and say, you're not going to have the same level of intimacy that these directors are going to have with regard to the workings of the system, the relationships
because
with...
you don't make your decisions in public.
Sir, I will say this. This is one of the most public, transparent, visible, it's by far the most public, transparent, visible organization I've had anything to do with ever in my life. I mean, the thought that this group, our big issue in this group is that we've got so much, we've got so many public information issues that it just the volume of materials that we have to deal with is just extraordinary. So we might not be to the level of transparency that I'm clearly hearing, but I'll tell you that's really shocking for somebody who spends so much of his time navigating through these issues. My point that I was going to make is that I will grant all of you that we do not, I don't think any man on this board will pretend to have the intimate level of knowledge that you've got about the University of Oregon at the campus level, but you must admit that you're not going to have the same level of knowledge about the inner workings of the board and the chancellor's office and the system, and maybe you don't care. Maybe that's not your issue. Maybe your issue is just the University of Oregon, and so why would you get so invested? Maybe, and I can understand that. But what I'm telling you is that based upon what I know as being deeply dysfunctional dynamics within this body as a result of the issues that have been raised here, it has broken my heart to go down to Eugene, see that excitement, really get invested in this community, all the while having to come back and deal with these awful dynamics and distrust. And not only that, while I'm working with the governor and his staff on broader education reforms that I think are going to absolutely transform Oregon education in ways that we can't even imagine. And so, and the elephant in the room, not just here, but more broadly, with the legislature, with the governor's office, is this issue. Everybody talks about it. I'm sorry that it hasn't been so transparent with the students. I find that to be surprising. It's been in the media. It's been in the media for all the summer. Did you pick up the papers? I mean, the acrimony has been so broadly advertised. I mean, the fact that this has come as a surprise, anybody that's been watching this has said, my God, I'm surprised this didn't happen ages ago. Ages ago. I mean, this has been so brewing for so long. And I have to tell you, I am finally at the point where I have invested so much in myself to try to prevent this day from happening. And I think all of us are saying we're just at a loss. We're just at a loss. And you juxtapose all the excitement that I personally feel when I go down and spend a day in Eugene, and I've spent several, You juxtapose all of that with this deep, gnawing sense of dysfunction in the broader community. It's been horrific. It's like you're seeing a train wreck coming. You're just seeing it. And you're saying, and everybody's talking to you, aren't you seeing that train wreck? I mean, people in the legislature, people that are dealing with the educational transformation are saying, Matt, don't you see this? You're the president. Don't you see this train wreck coming? I mean, this has been a long, dysfunctional ride. Long, dysfunctional ride. And it is heartbreaking to be here right now. It is absolutely heartbreaking right here. I mean, I think I pretty much said what I had to say in my public comments. The notion that this has been a secretive, cloaked deal, I cannot tell you, every fork in the road along our way here, it has been take the high road. Dot the I's, cross the T's. We have to have the public trust no matter what comes out of this. Okay? I get it. I know. I get that. I get that. No, I hear that. But let me tell you, that wasn't from any brazen disregard for you or the public. The bottom line is we have sought to take the high road all the way through this. Okay.
The big elephant in the room is the cash cow, UG, or the University of Oregon. Kitzhofer doesn't want to let it go. That's what the big elephant in the room is, or is not here. It's about the dynamics of how it affects the rest of the They do care about everything.
Out of respect, once again.
Let me make this.
Ma'am, please.
Let me make this gesture. No, let me make this gesture.
Out of respect for this process.
Let me make this gesture. I don't suspect everybody's going to come out of this room happy tonight. This is okay. Oh no, I get that. Let me get that. I get that. But let me make this gesture. Is that if you accept that this is not a pleasant situation, people aren't going to come out of here happy. I will talk with you one-on-one, and I will talk with you one-on-one and you one-on-one, because this has been a deeply, deeply thought out issue for me personally. Now, you might not ever agree with where I'm prepared to vote, but I assure you this is not just negligence because it hasn't been considered. This is
Can I say, I appreciate your heartfelt comments. I appreciate Mr. Ford's heartfelt comments. The rest of the board has read us prepared statements. You're not engaged in a dialogue with us. I think the rest of the board owes it to us to tell us what they think, how they have come to this decision before they vote, just out of common decency and respect for the people who do work hard at the University of Oregon.
Sir, I will again allow the directors to speak if they so choose. One thing I have to say here is I am CEO of an organization with offices that are dispersed. We have our version of the University of Oregon presidency is a position called the region manager. I think it's the best. Hold on. I think this is the best position in my company. Why? Because you own an operation. You get to run it. You get to really get deeply immersed, not just with your foresters, but with the trees and the communities. It's an awesome position. And invariably, you get these conflicts between, oh boy, they got to really, somebody's really pushing there, and then the corporate staff. I have never, ever said that initiative and innovation and entrepreneurship is anything but an asset. And my deepest philosophy, and I've said that over and over and over again, we should never view Dr. Lariviere's innovation, his initiative, his entrepreneurship as anything but an asset for the state of Oregon.
The University of Oregon isn't a corporation. That's what you're not
No, sir.
The University of Oregon is an educational
Okay, well, I can't. Okay, this is.
Runs under different sets.
I'm not applying business principles. What I'm talking about is organizational dynamics. The sense. How many times, sir, have I heard tonight that we're stifling leadership, we're stifling innovation. And I am telling you that is so far removed from my personal philosophy. But the issue is this. Somebody that's running one of those divisions has to be able to interact across the organization. It's part of the job description. It is. I get that. What I am telling you, what I'm telling you is, this is. I take insult at that implication. You have no idea how much I've put into trying to make this work out. Okay, I mean, never in dispute has there been that the campus is being that the campus is happy. Never in dispute. That's never been the issue. There's no problem to solve there. So I'm telling you once again that this decision is not. I mean, this is horrible. And yes, am I surprised about the outpouring from all this? Not one bit. I'm not. This university has got great pride. I've seen it. I've felt it. And the fact that people are going to be outraged from this, absolutely. I expect.
Can I say part of the problem here is the dynamic between President Lariviere and Chancellor Bernstein. I would like to hear Chancellor Bernstein explain his point of view on this situation.
Okay, I'm being told it's just not appropriate. It's just I'm not going. Okay.
Since you were willing to talk to each one of us individually, why not postpone?
Okay. Because I cannot. I can tell you, I've heard a lot. I've read a lot. I've been on the phone all week, and I can tell you that by and large we agree. By and large we agree. We agree about the future of the University of Oregon. By and large, it is absolutely the case. All the concepts of local boards, innovative financing, flagship university, excellence, paying faculty members what they need in order to retain them, all those things. I'm just not seeing the disagreement here.
Where is the harm to other institutions in OUS?
Governor, okay, I'm failing in my job as chair here. I'm not to engage.
You're doing a great job. You're letting us talk, and you are answering our questions. Okay. We would like the other board members to do the same.
Okay. I'm failing in my job as chair. I have to maintain some sense of control here. Yeah, right. Okay. But the issue is this. I would just say to that last one, and I'll stop engaging in this debate. Governor Kitzhaber's statement was quite clear as to what some of the spillover effect has been to the other institutions. I would offer to read that objectively. Read it objectively. And it will spell out a lot. And we're talking about not just with the other universities. We're talking about with the legislature. We're talking about with with the governor's office. I was told last night that this advocacy for the new partnership and the way that it was handled, it was so dysfunctional, it almost killed 242. I was told that by a very senior, credible person that said, I'm a huge duck. And what you're doing here, taking this board vote, is so essential for the state of Oregon. Now, I got to tell you, I mean, that's not the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about, maybe on the campus of the University of Oregon. But I got to tell you, this is the kind of these are the issues that are surfacing over and over and over again. And you know what this board's been accused of mostly is a failure of leadership for not acting, for allowing this circus to continue for so long. That's what we're primarily accused with.
By whom? By whom?
By anybody who is invested in this broader reform.
Okay, you and the governor. Who else?
No, as I mentioned, legislators. All right, listen, I'm going to have to be a better chair here. I'm going to have to be a better chair. I apologize to my fellow board members if I'm making them uncomfortable. I know we have to get through this before we do. I'm going to pause take a deep breath myself and ask if there are any other board members that would like to speak before we move to a vote.
May I say one word, please? In the spirit of collaboration and consultation. And I want everyone to know, every single person in this room, that the future of Oregon is on each and every one of our shoulders. Every board member has responsibility, personal responsibility, for the future of Oregon. How you vote will be connected to your name, to your honor, to your reputation from here on out. Think about this. I want to invite every single person here, everyone who's listening through the medium, everybody at this table, to our faculty assembly on Wednesday, which we convene in states of emergency or for special occasions, such as we know will be the case on Wednesday. It's at 3 o'clock in Mack Court. Chancellor Pernsteiner has agreed to speak. He will also be receiving questions. We have invited Matt Dunnigan. We haven't heard whether he is able to speak and receive questions. And we've invited the governor, who is very interested in speaking and receiving questions. We have not heard whether he will be doing so. Let's be, for one moment,
Bob, can I
together to understand that this meeting on Wednesday is very important. Whatever happens in this room, it is crucial that we gather on Wednesday and that we begin a healing process and a process for building trust. We must do this. We must not leave this room without that being in place.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much.
If I can, that is great. That is great leadership, and unfortunately, there are like 2 days this entire month that I'm completely unavailable, and Wednesday is one of them. And so
But we asked for a board representative. It can be any member of the board.
We will. No, I will. We'll accommodate you. Where I was going with this is that the governor and I both want to come and make a special trip. So if Wednesday, where I'm going with this is that if Wednesday doesn't work out, and it can't work out for me, it's just I have something long-standing, that I will definitely come down and do, I think, actually even probably a better job of having a series of discussions with you and the other leadership. So
we really need board representation on Wednesday.
Okay, well, we just haven't had a chance.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm sorry. Linda, please.
A number of you, when you were talking about your Senate and also talking about the various groups that all belong to the Senate, I sat here and I've heard it multiple times, and it's confused me a bit that you say that nothing has been brought to the students, the faculty, and this type of thing. However, you have representatives in terms of that we have the Interinstitutional Faculty Senate, and you have representatives that are IFS senators. And so my question is, this has been going on for quite some time. They have sat in this room and heard the discussion. They have heard the outcome in terms of the June meeting. And so what's disturbing me really a lot is what you're saying to me is that this is not coming back to your campus and that it's not being presented at your Senate where it should be presented, so that you have heard these things and you are aware of them. And so I'm very surprised that this is not occurring.
Thank you so much for your comment, but that's not what it's about. We need to have a direct relationship with this board. Whatever they say in IFS, I mean, that's very important, and we are aware. But we want a true consultative and collaborative relationship with you.
Thank you, Professor.
And one more thing, we have the OUS Leadership Caucus.
Okay.
We are in touch with every Senate.
Professor.
Everyone.
Professor.
Okay, Bob, Linda, I appreciate you saying that, and we're going to have to reach closure here, but I have to say I have visited every single campus. I did that before I became president. I spent a day at every single campus. And I got to tell you, this issue was everywhere that I went. I mean, it was. I mean, so the fact that this hasn't been getting airtime.
It's been getting air. The issue of you firing President Lariviere is what has not been getting airtime.
Oh, okay, what I'm saying about that, sir, is that you have to respect that that there are bounds of confidentiality around a personnel matter. The broader issue has been out there forever. And this board has mostly been faced with, what are you doing? Where's your inaction? Where's your leadership? And so I'm telling you, if you're not getting airplay on this at your campus, I'm shocked by that. Because this issue has been everywhere that I've gone.
Why hasn't anyone come here today to say that?
Excuse me?
There has only been support.
Okay, now, I think you can probably answer your own question there. I have had so much support sent to, I have sent so much support sent to me over the last several days. And it's just not realistic that you're going to get a lot of people coming in here to join this board right now.
Just one.
Okay, well, all right. I will see what I can do about that. Okay, because several have offered. Okay, I have been informed that we're losing one of our directors, and I need to move to a vote. And this has been highly unusual. I will say again to my fellow directors, I apologize for the breakdown in protocol. I felt that this was necessary. With that, I'm finally going. We've had a motion from Director Schuler. We have it's been seconded by Director Kelly, and now we're going to move to a vote. And there's only one way to do that, and that's via roll call. So I'm going to ask for the board secretary to please administer the roll call vote.
Director Donegan.
Yes.
Director Ciafetti.
Yes.
Director Island.
Yes.
Director Fisher.
Yes.
Director Ford.
Yes.
Director Francisconi.
Yes.
Director Ganjafar.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director Powers.
Yes.
Director Pulliams.
Yes.
Director Schuler.
Yes.
And Director Yaden.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you, Secretary. I'm going to ask Chancellor Bernsteiner to please discuss the next steps in the process.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that Professor Keir has already talked about some of the things that will be happening going forward. It is now, I think, imperative that we all work to ensure that the university will continue to flourish, and we need to work with the University of Oregon community to advance effective communication as we seek a new interim president for the university. On Wednesday, as Professor Keir indicated, I will be meeting with faculty, staff, and students at the university as well as at the Senate to seek their advice about who that interim president should be. We will also reach out to other key stakeholders of the university to seek their advice. After those consultations, I hope to have a better idea of when I can bring you a recommendation for interim president. I believe that you should make that appointment next week before the faculty and students leave campus at the end of the fall term. And therefore, I think Chuck will be polling the board members to see your availability next week, at a time in which I hope I can make a recommendation and that you can appoint an interim president for the University of Oregon. We're grateful that Dr. Lariviere will continue in his role through the 28th of December.
Thank you. With that, I'll move to adjournment. Thank you.
Yes, there is. Perhaps Mr. Chancellor, I can ask you, or use it as an opportunity to no, it's
I guess I'll be available, yeah.
Let me check and see if he's